Thousands of people at hundreds of tables from all corners of our region are making an impact.
On the Table Milwaukee is powerful because it brings people together.
We are breaking bread and connecting communities.
It brings diversity to the table of age, of color, of community.
There is a much greater awareness of needs in our community. Homelessness, transportation, childcare.
We're going to be successful by us working together and supporting each other.
People are collaborating, partnering,
I see people of really different thought.
and strengthening our community together. Something remarkable happens when you mix diversity and dialogue.
Anytime I would see people that were of different cultures.
We don't get to do that very often today, to come together with people whose backgrounds are not necessarily the same.
Acknowledging each other, seeing each other, and listening to each other's story.
I think that will help us build that resilience.
It starts around the table.
When personal stories are shared,
I didn't have a father in my life either, so.
connections and commitment deepen.
I don't know one person who left today's On the Table not moved and deeply impacted by the conversations we had here today. Ideas were exchanged and tears were shed.
It motivates us to be present and to be a part of the solution.
Somebody actually said that they were being vulnerable. So it really is a safe space for people to bring their full self.
It is so gratifying to see so many people want to engage in moving our community forward. Since the first year the Greater Milwaukee Foundation introduced On the Table, we have moved from conversation to dialogue to relationship building to ideas to action.
Spanning topics like advancing racial equity,
People want more transportation. They want more opportunity. They need funding.
promoting entrepreneurship,
And I think that you have to do that through cross-cultural partnerships. You have to do that through cross-sector partnerships.
and criminal justice reform.
We know that people are really passionate for change, that transformational change is coming.
If On the Table continues to engage the community on this topic, you'll see stronger families, you'll see more men active in their families.
Standing up to bullies,
I think the youth have a voice and we're here to listen.
and harnessing faith to fight gun violence.
To be able to share my story is powerful because I can change the narrative for other women.
Sharing your story is healing, but we understand that we need to enact policy so that other people don't go through the same things.
Where collaboration today is generating solutions for tomorrow. Your voice matters at On the Table MKE.
Hi, I'm Afton Warren. Welcome to the second day of On the Table Milwaukee. I'm super excited to be with you today. This is our Using Art as a Way Forward session. Every community has artists. Artists offer hope, and hope heals. This quote to me signifies the importance of art therapy. It's a free creative method of expression through visual arts, a process that improves our mental health and well-being. So in this session, we will discuss how art and culture play an important role in creating healthier and more equitable communities, as well as the existing barriers that artists face to creating a thriving art ecosystem. So during this session, please make sure that you're using our Q&A function if you have any questions for our guests. We have two amazing co-hosts who are going to be facilitating the conversation. Lysandra Vernon from Artists Working in Education, as well as my very dear friend, Kenita Hickman from Imagine Milwaukee.
let me unmute myself. That's the intro. Hey, Afton. Thank you so much for introducing us. Super excited that you were the one to introduce us. Yes, I'm here with my co-host from AWE, LaShondra Vernon, and we are here to moderate this discussion on arts as a healer. We have an incredible panel. I am from Imagine MKE, the Director of Artist Support and Outreach, and Imagine MKE is the Chamber of Commerce for arts and culture. So we align, connect, and convene artists across disciplines. So welcome, thank you for coming to our session. I wanna give my co-host the opportunity to introduce herself and her org as well.
For sure. Hello, everyone. My name is LaShondra Vernon. I am a retired performing artist, but I guess that's relative. And I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of Artists Working in Education here in Milwaukee. Our ultimate mission is to cultivate community and to create art in this community that leads to successful entree into the creative economy for people that look just like me, that look just like you. And so I'm proud to be able to serve in this space. I also am a board member and co-chair of a committee that works very closely with Kenita at Imagine Milwaukee. I am a strong supporter also of the movement that is propelling the arts forward with economic supports that we are building together at Imagine Milwaukee. And so from both of us to all of you that have joined, we welcome you and are thankful that you chose to take time to participate in this conversation. We did say that we wanted to make sure that we set rules of engagement very intentionally in this space. You know, normally we would be doing this in person, but because we don't have that luxury today, we still need to honor respectful and safe spaces to have conversation about how to move the culture forward in a community facing so many barriers to doing this. And so we asked within the ground rules that you keep in mind the purpose of this conversation that was shared at the very top and center your thoughts and questions around that. The goal here is to establish healthy relationships within this community, but then beyond this community. So please keep that in mind as your priority. We want to avoid scarcity mindset. So let's approach this conversation from abundance. I like to put it this way. What if none of the things that ever happened that were inequitable ever happened in the past and we started from what we want to see? Please, please, please use that mindset as we are having this conversation. Our goal is partnership and collaboration. So ideas that you have, put them forward with the intention of moving them into action. Remain humble and stay respectful and really just show up listening and identifying ways that we can really build on this conversation around arts moving things forward in communities that are less easily identifiable to move forward in some other categories and areas. And so Kenita and I are going to bounce back and forth, but I think the first thing that we should be doing is engaging with our panelists and having them all introduce themselves and share a little bit about them. And so I am going to kick it off to Ray Nitty to start that process. So Ray, we are going to give you the floor now. Share about your work and your art.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rahanyo Boynes. Most people know me as Ray Nitty. And first, let me humble myself by saying I'm extremely humbled to be on here with a panelist full of women and being the only male. So I'm extremely thankful for this opportunity to be a part of this conversation. And I'm also a part of a panel that's hosted by two Rufus King generals as a Tiger alumni. I am going to extremely humble myself and give generals their respect. But my name is Ray Nitty. Most people know me as a performing artist in the city of Milwaukee. I had a song called Bow that did really well. I was able to tour, did some shows overseas for our troops. And now I'd just like to say I'm using my influence to help develop spaces in the city of Milwaukee for our creatives and for our talent, to help retain some of our talent so we can begin to change that narrative that Milwaukee is a city where people have to leave from in order to attain a certain level of success. And I'm also one of the partners on the community within the corridor development, which is on 32nd and Center Street. We're redeveloping the old Briggs and Stratton Center, and it would be a big location for our creative community.
All right, thank you, Ray. I am going to head over to Rosie Petrie to talk a little bit more about her connection to arts. I know her connection. Her connection is incredible, but I'm gonna turn it over to Rosie.
Hey y'all, how you doing this morning? My name is Rosie Petrie. Feel really happy to be here, and I'm super glad that the sun is shining and that we can all see each other's faces. A little bit about me. I am a self-taught quilting artist. Last year I was the Pfister Artist of the Year, and that this year I was blessed with the Mildred L. Harpole Artist of the Year from the Milwaukee Arts Board, which was, I wasn't expecting that, so that was dope. And I am here to fellowship with y'all.
All right, and I'm going to kick it over next to Nicole Acosta.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Acosta, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist, born and raised in the city of Milwaukee, first generation Mexican artist here in the city. And my current focus is the Hoops Portrait Project that has been internationally recognized.
That's a fantastic ending statement. It's been internationally recognized, so we don't even have to talk anymore about that. Period. Finally, our last panelist that we want to introduce, but certainly not the least, an incredible, I would say, multidisciplinary artist within her own right, Miss Anna Rose.
Hi, my name is Anna. Yeah, like Kanina said, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I work a lot in drawing and painting, and I like to do portraits and also murals more recently, but I love performance art as well and love to study ballet.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for taking some time out to be a part of the panel, and also all of you who are listening. If this is your first time being a part of On the Table, one of the key components of On the Table is this idea of community conversations, as you saw in the video, leading up to the discussion, but it's also the call to action after the conversation. So how can these incredible community-centered conversations lead to changes table by table, block by block? How do we change our communities with each other after these conversations? And so GMF has made a commitment to help fund projects that come out of that seem to align with changing communities based out of these conversations happening right here On the Table. And so we will talk more about that towards the end and talk about how you can get involved. And so I hope that as you're engaging in the conversation and leaving questions for us to answer and just really hearing these different artists' perspectives, that you're also thinking about how can you use art as a healer, and what is your community missing that will help move that forward. So with that, I think it's time to start engaging in some dialogue to get some energy flowing. So I will toss it back over to my colleague, LaShondra.
So I really think that the movement experience that we've had in Milwaukee is unique to other cities. And I think that's an important thing for us to elevate. But I think an important piece of this is the pivotal role that the arts and artists have played in the social justice movement. But I do want to make a quick statement. This doesn't necessarily have to require every panelist's response, specific to some challenges that we've been seeing in our own artistic community around intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and rape. And I'm making this statement because I don't expect anyone on this panel has the answer or solution, but we have a very unique challenge within the creative community in how we address the impact of intimate partner violence and sexual assault that we haven't figured out a solution for yet. And so although our questions are not going to center on that issue, I believe when you're working on justice work, you must be explicit and not implicit. And we have to call that problem out in order for us to do the work to resolve it. So as we're asking these questions and as you're in this discussion as participants, please think about how we can focus in the future on ways that we can resolve the experience and the impact of violence in relationships, and how the creative community plays an extremely unique role in how we elevate those concerns differently where spaces may not allow. And so I'm putting that into the atmosphere because I'm being sensitive to our current environment, the narratives that we're all hearing, but we haven't figured out a way to deal with. This is a deeper conversation. And when we get into our calls to action, please think about how we can work on that together. So I'm going to pass it over to all of the questions that we've already discussed. And the first one is going to be around radical healing. So how do you, as artists, how have you used the art in this community to heal yourselves personally? And what has motivated you to be creative around healing? And it's open to anyone to respond.
LaShandra, can you repeat that again? I didn't quite hear that.
Sure. So how has art, your art, healed you personally and motivated you to create?
I'll go ahead and jump in on this, unless you want to go, Ray.
No, I was really trying to be respectful to the women and was hoping one of you all went first.
Okay, I'll go. So I actually kind of found myself making art on the regular basis after two kind of crucial deaths in my family. I lost my dad, and shortly thereafter, I lost my grandmother. And I found myself kind of trying to find a way to process those emotions. Also trying to find a way to soothe myself and not direct any of that loss or that grief energy at anybody in a way that could be weaponized. And I found myself sitting in front of a sewing machine for the first time in a decade. And that was a decade ago. And I haven't stopped really since then. So for me, very specifically, my work has been directly tied to my own healing process, and through learning, through reconnecting with people that I've lost, through reconnecting with my heritage, my culture, and then also like using all of that information to then find something that feels more like my own.
Anyone else?
I could jump on. I would say for me, I was able to use art. I grew up in a domestic violence household. So when we moved from the islands, I kept a lot of emotions and anger and traumas that I saw in. And I was a part of a youth leadership program called Urban Underground. And I was two poets by the name of Kwabena Nixon and Muhib Dair that they did a poem called The Children Are Crying. And I was basically talking about a young boy who was lashing out in school and, you know, just trying to get attention. He was trying to heal from something. And I just started like emotionally crying in the middle of this youth seminar. And he's like, man, whatever it is that you're going through, just, you don't have to tell me your business. I know you 17, like trying to figure it out, but write it down. So for me, I was able to start like writing poetry about a lot of the things that I saw my mom go through, a lot of the emotions that I was trying to balance with, whether that was like, you know, I tried to help her, but I then took a beating as well, you know, so like processing those feelings of not being strong enough to support my mom when she needed to. So it was just a way for me to like write these things down, and also a way to forgive as well, through just writing it and expressing it and then turning it into songs and then putting it out that way as well. And then far as like motivated me to create more spaces for other artists to express themselves and showcase and sharpen their talents, because a lot of times as creatives, I feel like we are just creating to express something that we're internally processing.
I can go next. So I think it all started back in high school. So I've always gone to art school. So I graduated from Milwaukee High School of the Arts, and I attended Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, Milwaukee Area Technical College, all studying visual art and photography. But for me, back in high school, it was a lot about assimilation. And so trying to figure out who I was, like this brown girl in public school who spent the weekends being extremely, I don't know, it's funny to me, just hella Mexican. And then like during the week, like break dancing and listening to hip hop music all week long in school with my friends. And so I picked up a camera. My parents didn't know what to buy me for Christmas one year, and they bought me this like film camera at the flea market at 7 Mile Fair, because that's just what they did. And so I started documenting like my experience with all my friends, and I was always the one that had a camera, whether we were just like eating at a restaurant or, you know, hanging out after school, that was me. And I was also, that's when I discovered writing too. So I've been writing poetry since I was a teenager, just trying to make sense of everything. And then as I got older, I became a mother, and a really young mother, and going through a couple of abusive relationships. And I had like stopped, I put art down for a while to take care of my kids and be a mom. And, you know, you don't realize that you can do both at once when you're that young. And so after I finally left my second partner, I picked up art again. And that's when my healing and my art just joined forces, and I kind of like just went absolutely bananas in my art practice. So that's where I am now.
One way that art has been healing for me is that it's given me a sense of empowerment in my own intuition, and just like trusting what I know for myself. For example, the concept of manifestation to me means envisioning what you want and then making it a reality somehow. And art is exactly that to me. When I make a piece of art, I think, how do I want it to make me feel? And then I just keep piecing the artwork together until it comes into fruition. And so that has been very healing for me and given me a sense of confidence in my own artistic voice, because it's all unique from artist to artist, and you don't have to compare yourself to anyone else.
So I want to throw in like a follow-up question to that. In thinking about art being healing, can you think of a piece of art that you've seen or that you created that was particularly healing for you? So again, a piece that from another artist or a piece that you yourself has created that was particularly healing for you, and why?
I can go. When I was young, I was traveling cross country with my family, and out of all the places in the world, there was a McDonald's with a Frida Kahlo painting hanging up inside of it. And like, obviously everyone knows about her unibrow, and I had a unibrow as a young child as well. And so my brother was making fun of me and was like, "Ah, you look like her, blah, blah, blah." But that, like, to me at that moment, I was like, I've never seen something like this before. I've never seen like a brown woman in a painting with a unibrow, like, and I was fascinated by it. And that was like as a teenager. And so I think that at that moment, for the first time, I saw myself in a piece of art. And then, so like I also paint. And so like, as you can see, but I don't know how well you can see back there. Like I have that piece that I've been working on for a while. So, you know, just seeing yourself in your art, for me, painting is very therapeutic, and I just stick to it. It's not my main focus, but it's definitely something where I try to paint like what my emotions are at that time and what I'm feeling, how I see myself.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share perhaps again a piece of artwork that they created, or someone else's artwork that they've found particularly healing?
Yes, there's so much to be said for representation and seeing yourself in art. Growing up, because as girls, you're taught that your appearance is everything. Oh, you have to look pretty. And so growing up, something that gave me confidence in my appearance was doing self-portraits of myself, exactly how I look. And so any piece of art that I feel represented in is healing to me, and I enjoy it to this day.
I love this. And I just have to say, Anna is my very favorite artist to watch rise right now. And we're always so excited when we see Anna either working with us. We hire Anna frequently at AWE, but when the rest of the community is hiring Anna as a result of this exposure, this engagement. And so that really brings me to this question that we have around the pandemic and this catalytic art in the movement that's happening. So I will say that, you know, as we've been working through what I've been calling a pandemic wrapped in a crisis, people have really had these creative ways that they've come forward. One is in what's happened inside of the movement. And so some of you have done some very intentional work in this community in the midst of this crisis. Can you talk about the work that you've done that has moved the community forward and how that has looked? And low key, I'm really setting Anna up for some projects that Anna did this summer with us at AWE that brought us nothing but joy. But this summer, the work that you did is something I think we should highlight, really around the catalytic nature of how you can shift the energy in with art during a very difficult time. So I'm going to ask the question again. I want everyone to answer yes, but I really want Anna to speak directly to the work you did that was catalytic this summer around the movement.
So yeah, that was really rewarding, and it all happened so fast. Sorry, I don't even know what to say, but yeah, I remember I was really inspired by the commentary on Facebook and with my peers and friends, and what their take was on the movement, the uprising at the beginning of June. And I really appreciated being able to take their feedback and put it into the work that I made, and also make work based off of marches that I attended, that if you were there, then you would see the work and be like, oh, that was when that happened. I really thought it was special that it was kind of specific to, like, if you were there, you knew it, if that makes sense.
And anyone else, anything that you did during this season that was catalytic in the art space around the movement?
I would say, once again, I want to shout out my partners, QL Amin and Michael Wesley, on the community within the corridor development. For us, that was like going on a 5-year project. So I would say during a pandemic, we were able to finally get our financing together for the community within the corridor to help create this space for the for artists. And I think the crisis that we have already been in is the one that Chris Abele has labeled a public health crisis, which is racism, which is a lot of responses to why we're seeing protests and a lot of things. So being able to have a space where our creatives can express themselves and create art to help push the movement forward, push forth other projects, or just having a space where they can finally come and have the proper tools and get connected to other creatives that's using their talents to help propel the movement. So I would say that's pretty much one of our biggest things that I'm proud of, is a community within the corridor, which is Wisconsin's largest affordable housing development project in the state.
Mic drop. Did you hear that mic drop? It was a very gentle mic drop there, but the largest, what again? Say that one more time, sir.
So it is officially Wisconsin's largest affordable housing development project that is privately owned. And I'm proud to say it's owned by 3 African-American brothers. So I think that's pretty dope for what we have been working on over the past few years. But as huge as it sounds, it's only a small piece as to what's really needed for the real change for this city. And we need a bunch of dope partners like some of everybody that's at this table right now to help carry this huge thing across the finish line.
Thank you, Ray. Others want to join in and answer the question?
I see Rosie extended her hand, like if there's someone else. All right, we can move on. Oh, Rosie's in.
I'll do it. I was waiting for Nicole to shoot her shot, but I guess I'll jump in.
She don't be shooting her shot.
Well, we actually okay, so maybe that's what I was talking
I'm
about
really bad.
specifically.
I'm really bad about that. Sorry.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think for me, I'm still very much moving as if though there is a whole pandemic happening, and I am not out in the world for that reason. But I think something for me that has become really important in terms of catalyzing art and creativity and movement in this time is working on ways to kind of decolonize and self-determine narratives of what's happening right now. So instead of waiting for the moment for somebody to acknowledge or recognize what you're doing, create those moments with your people and celebrate them that way. So for me, that right now means starting up and working on this oral history project that's centering and focusing Black women and Black queer folks in movement work right now that are not necessarily in the front lines, but are behind the lines, getting some of that work done and taking some time to sit with and talk with them and listen from them directly about what they're doing, what's important, what they need to do, or what they need for support. And then also working with a photographer, working with different community leaders, and then eventually and ultimately creating some archive that makes that a first person source that's available for folks later who want to do more with that information, but then also a direct opportunity to learn about folks doing things right now.
I will kind of just feed off of what Rosie just said. And I love Rosie, by the way. So I've been doing this Hoops Portrait project. It's been a seedling since 2019. And I had some major plans for it this year. COVID hit, but there was still this inertia around the whole project, and people still wanted it to happen regardless of what was happening. And then I think what happened was the huge uprisings that were happening were now kind of paving a way for certain voices to be heard that otherwise go silent in every aspect of the word. And now it was a time, especially for Black women voices, to kind of take the space and share their stories. And so the Hoops Portrait Project is about destigmatizing how people perceive Black and Brown Indigenous women because of their hoop earrings, when we wear our hoop earrings. And so as a lot of people know, there's a stigma attached to them where you're unprofessional or they're ghetto and things like that. But it's only when Black and brown bodies wear them, and not necessarily when white women wear them. And so what happens is the hoops are telling their stories, and the people who are wearing the hoops are sharing stories associated with their portraits. And you come to realize that, mothers are passing down earrings, grandmothers are passing down earrings or gifting earrings, or they're becoming a coming of age, or women remember the first night they wore their hoop earrings out on the town, or whatever the case may be, or it brings them back to a certain era, like the 80s with hip hop and things like that. So it's there's all these beautiful stories wrapped up in our hoop earrings, and those are the types of stories that I found while doing this project that people want to hear, not necessarily the typical stuff that you hear. It becomes this whole other. Sorry, I got a call. It becomes this whole other thing. And so what I now, at first I was kind of oh, this shouldn't be shared right now. I was trying to be real mindful of everything, but it was no, these women wanted their stories to be heard. And so I just came to accept that and started being very intentional about what's happening with this project.
Okay, thank you for that, Nicole. And that actually leads, I think, to the next question that I want to center around each of you as artists, but also thinking about what lessons can be gleaned from that. So what can the city, what can neighborhoods learn from that? And the question is, right now, I mean, we all know that we're all experiencing COVID in real time, a pandemic in real time, and also now protest all over the country, right? And so, but with COVID, folks' needs have become even more pressing, specifically food, housing, income. So the first part of the question is, how have you all been able to still keep art as a priority for you, right? So, I mean, Nicole, I know you had a temporary hoops installation over on 35th Street. Ray, I know you've been hosting pop-ups and things like that. So the first part of the question is, how have you been able to keep arts as a priority for you? And the second part of that, if you're able to answer it, is, and what lessons do you think our city and municipality can take from that to help make sure that arts remains a priority as we continue to move through the pandemic and beyond?
I think it's been really clear to everybody who has been living a second questionable life for the past 6 to 8 months about how important art is. If there's a question of it, folks can turn in all the music they're listening to, every Netflix show that they have binged. You can put down every book you've read. You can drop every piece of clothing that you're wearing. And if you've eaten at a restaurant, you can stop doing that too, because those are all part of art. Those are all cultural visual, performing art, whatever, people are relying so heavily on artists right now, not just for, it's not non-essential. It is quality of life stuff that gives people hope, connects them to each other. It ties us together. It helps us tell each other stories. It helps us to encourage one another. I know for myself, I have been really enjoying the fact that artists have time to produce the work they want to make. And I'm just seeing beautiful work coming out of this pandemic. So I hope that the city realizes that the artists here, the homegrown artists, are just as valuable as the folks that come in. We are here, we are doing the thing. Support us in any which way. And also, honestly, like, talk to your artist friends. Maybe you're like worried about how you can afford a thing. Talk with them. We usually can work something out. We want to get our work to you. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to support us, and we want to support you with what we do. So reach out.
I will cut in and say that I just purchased my first original piece, and I'm a little bougie. I'm very bougie, actually, because I've been offered, like, buy the print, and I'm like, no, I don't want the print. I want the original. And I did make payment arrangements on it, and I honored the contract. I honored the payment arrangements, got it paid off early, and am now looking. I mean, Anna can tell you, I've been in her DM trying to get payment arrangements on some of her work. Like, I'm out here, like,
girl, get that money.
Listen, I'm trying to get this money. I'm trying to give y'all my money. And so it was incredible for me as a Black woman who never thought I would be able to buy an original piece of artwork from a Black creative. And it's in my bedroom right now. It's the most incredible feeling to me. So yes, everything Rosie just said. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I'll just chime in and say everything she just said as well. Personally for me, it just it gave me an opportunity to use the corridor as a platform for artists to just come in, host things that they could earn during these times. So Latasha Smith, for example, hosted like an art therapy thing where she invited other artists on the parking lot just to come showcase and sell some of their work. But some of the lessons that I think that the city can learn and take away from this is echoing what she said again, is like seeing how important art is on so many different aspects. Like, stop asking creatives to create magic without magically having a budget attached to it, because this is their livelihood, and arts is an essential need for us, how we survive, how other people survive, not just financially, but some of us are just creating to keep that pulse inside of us going. So knowing that we don't have to worry about we energies coming through because the city of Milwaukee invested in retaining their homegrown talent, because that's what it shows as well. It shows an investment in our creatives here and goes against the narrative that we're not putting forth those investments here. So I hope the city is learning from this pandemic that we need way more investment, because it helps retain our homegrown talent and it helps sharpen their skills and inspires them even more to create more dope stuff.
And so we got a couple more minutes before we wrap it up and throw it out to folks to ask questions. So those of you who are engaged in the conversation and listening to our panel, if you've got questions, go ahead, start sending them in now. We would love to start answering them and shooting them to our panelists. So it looked like Nicole was going to say something, so I can turn it over to her.
So a couple of lessons that I learned from the pandemic is how innovative people can actually be. And I think this was like a what is that, like a double-edged sword type of situation, because like we would have never started maybe hosting all these things virtually like how we have been, and being able to connect with other cities virtually. So there's that. I participated when I had two shows, one in Chicago, one in Milwaukee, that's still up at the Arts at Large Gallery. And the Arts at Large Gallery did a virtual, what is that called? Gallery night opening. So me and the other artists that were sharing space, we held a virtual tour, and that was really cool. But it just kind of let me know that there are way many other ways to do things creatively, and that we sometimes, I feel Milwaukee can get very stuck sometimes when it comes to innovative ways and being creative. And so I was glad to see Milwaukee kind of step their game up a little bit and doing some of these different things. And then also like, I recently put up, so there's like these different intersections that artists can jump into. And so I've never been one to kind of be like into politics and things like that until this year. The Milwaukee Public Library asked to use they at first wanted to do a mural, but then I was like, well, I got these hoops portraits, how can you use those? And that was to encourage people to vote and to register to vote. And basically the words overlaying the portraits were your count, you matter, your voice matters, like things like that. And so finding just different ways to use your art to drive action and change was something else that I learned this year.
All right, cool. Thank you. So now we've been getting questions coming in. And so I'm going to start kind of just shooting them to folks. And one of them I actually want to send directly to Rosie. So Rosie had mentioned that, look, whatever you're doing to keep yourself together during the pandemic over the past 8 months, art has been some part of that. Like you've engaged in art, you're engaging in art now. And so if you don't recognize the importance of art, like look at how you're spending your time. And I think that was such an incredible example to show art across disciplines. So the question, Rosie, is, can you talk more about why art is so important to healing from your standpoint?
I was like, yeah, I can do that from my standpoint. I don't have the be all and end all on that answer. But for me, basically what it boils down to is that art is culture. Anything and everything that distinguishes us on an individual, on a group level, like it's flavor, you know? So whether that is the music you listen to, the food you eat, the style of your hair, your adornments, all of that kind of helps you find your place in the constellation, you know? And for I say for myself, but I venture out and say even for Black people specifically, like our identity is not tied to a specific place. It's rooted in the things that we share with each other. And a lot of that is the art that we make just by existing. So I think for me that's very healing.
All right, thank you, Rosie. And we are getting so many questions. I'm gonna do my best to get them all answered, but spoiler alert, I'm probably not gonna be able to make that happen, but I'm gonna do my best. Okay, so we have a question from Ellen that I'm gonna pass to Anna because you talked a little bit about this. What can tours at the Milwaukee Art Museum do to help engage children and adult people of color in a meaningful way? Ellen has given tours for 30 years, and she heard you, Anna Rose, mention being inspired by seeing yourself represented in art. So can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, great question. I am honestly thinking I have memories from the Milwaukee Art Museum from being very young and really impactful with the art, but I don't remember seeing myself represented at all. I was super inspired in spite of that. So yeah, I would love to see more Black artists in the museum, of course. And more Black artists, absolutely. And Black people represented in art. I guess I'm repeating myself.
All right, thank you so much for that. I'm gonna shoot this out to everybody while I do a quick time check. This is from an anonymous individual. I work for a public arts org here in Milwaukee, and we want to connect with more diverse artists. This individual wants to know what's the best way to connect. So let's give this person all the tea on how to find more diverse artists.
And then I'm going to have the nerve to ask you to do that as quickly as possible because I'm timekeeping and we are close to our border.
Go to more diverse communities.
Diversity is a buzzword and it's dangerous. Right now, we as artists of color are getting hit really hard with requests that do not come with commensurate pay opportunities, but there's a lot of labor being expected. If your organization has a hard time retaining or working with people of color, you really need to check your infrastructure.
Come on here, Rosie.
All right, anybody else?
I think we're gonna have to I know y'all might want to continue to respond to it, but the level of mic drop of the statement that Rosie just made makes me feel confident that we're just going to say that again in different ways. Am I wrong? Okay, and I'm getting the nudges, so I'm trying to keep the timing. I am aware there are other conversations to be had, but I do want to make sure that I clarify each of the questions. There are some amazing questions here that we would like to keep talking about, but Kanita and I are personally responsible for a committee to support artists working at Imagine Milwaukee. And we struggle sometimes to figure out how to support artists because they're not always the ones in attendance. Because the timing of, the challenge of creating a space for them to be and not paying them is one of our root challenges. So when it's time to talk about what the next phase is for this conversation, I want to just articulate from the perspective of being the executive director at Artists Working in Education, we have agreed to match support ideas specifically coming out of this moving us forward with the arts conversation to support the action above and beyond the financial commitment of Greater Milwaukee Foundation. And I say this because every year we have the opportunity to apply for some additional funds to do something with what comes from this table. I'd like to make sure that that conversation is about how we make sure that we're paying all of the artists equitably for their work and their additional labor, especially if they're being identified specifically coming from communities of color. And so that's where I'd like us to do our very intentional work. But I do know that we are coming to the edge of our timing. And so doing a check-in, checking the comments to see whether or not leadership from GF is ready for me to pivot, for us to pivot.
Well, I want to get in this last question. And so I'm gonna do this last question really quick. How can we help the city invest in what we're all doing? So just a quick round robin and then we out.
Would it be possible? I think one of the things that is really frustrating for me as an artist is that a lot of monies that are available for art projects, operations, whatever, they are really geared towards people who have a very specific knowledge that might come from art school or that's very institutional. If that money can be made available in a way that is accessible with an application, folks can fill out on their own without special information, that would be great.
I'll just quickly say, once again, our development has 197 residential units. So that's 197 different families that will be needing different access to services and programs that our creatives in the creative corridor will be offering free for our residents living on campus. And we will have 50,000 square feet of creative commercial space that will house dance studios, podcast studios, a bunch of different things and art spaces. And the way the city could help us out is, one, come and take a look at where we're at on 32nd and Center Street, one of the poorest zip codes in the country, and see the type of transformative work that is already being done in the neighborhood, and take a look at how we could really impact not just the people living on campus, but the neighbors that are dwelling around the development as well.
I think sharing resources is extremely important. So like if you know there's a fellowship or you know there's a grant someone can apply to, share it with the artists that you know. I have applied to 3 different fellowships in the past month or so, and that's only because people sent them to me. Otherwise, I would have never seen them. And so it's super important to share those resources.
Awesome. Well, that concludes our time together today. I want to personally thank all of you for taking some time out to be a part of the panel, to submit your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but certainly I hope that there's opportunities for us to continue these conversations offline. So I do hope that you'll reach out to me through Imagine MKE, of course, LaShondra over at AWE, and any of the artists on the panel to continue these conversations, because that is what On the Table is all about. I'm sure GMF will be sending out communication regarding, hey, if you're inspired by an idea or you got something you want to connect to one of our panelists to help get funding for, so that we can continue to make things happen block by block, table by table, please, let's do that, because we want some action items to come from this conversation and all of the conversations that are happening with On the Table. So thank you guys so much for coming, and hope to do this again next year in person.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Kanita, for being my trusted partner in collaborating in the arts. And if any of you would like to continue to connect, I've shared my own contacts at AWE, and respectfully, if any of you would like to keep this conversation going and figure out strategies to grow this creative community to the level it deserves to be, we are absolutely ready to do that together.
All right, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys for participating and your willingness to learn with us. On the Table Milwaukee will continue with our next session, Building Community and Ecosystem for Change at 4 p.m. We will conclude tomorrow on day 3 with Recommitting to Milwaukee's Promise, a conversation on how Milwaukee can claim its future as a community where every life is valued. We encourage you to keep your mindset on transformational ideas as more ideas are moving towards positive actions. So thank you.